Coming up on Vegas Nation Gameday, a new week, a new opponent. The Raiders will look to put their worst loss of the season behind them.
So just the way we came out and played, came out flat, and, we typically start a lot faster than what we did, so just correcting all those type of things.
Your Week 9 Raiders versus Jaguars preview coming up right now on Vegas Nation Gameday.
Powered by the Las Vegas Review-Journal, this is Vegas Nation Gameday. Presented by D&R House of Diamonds, making luxury affordable. Located in the One Summerlin building in downtown Summerlin.
Welcome in, football fans, to this week's episode of Vegas Nation Gameday. I'm your host, Cassie Soto. The Raiders have spent the last few days in Florida as the team looks to right the wrongs of last week's disaster of a game. The Silver and Black now preparing to face the Jacksonville Jaguars on Sunday. Let's go ahead and get to this matchup, starting with our opening drive, brought to you by Capriotti's. Make your game day extraordinary with Capriotti's. Order now. Raiders beat writer Vinny Bonsignore here with us. Vinny, after spending a couple of days with the team there in Sarasota, how would you say things are going? Are the guys recovered from their Week 8 loss to the Saints?
Yeah, they tried to flush that as quickly as possible. Talking to Josh Jacobs today, he watches the film, good or bad, he moves on, as quickly as he can. And as he said, and as a lot of guys have reiterated, the NFL doesn't give you a whole lot of time to dwell on things. And the reason for that, it's not like the NBA or baseball where you move on to the very next game the next day sometimes, or a day or two later. The process of the NFL is so much different than other sports in that you actually practice and study more than you actually play. You play 3 hours on Sundays, but there's a whole week worth of work, and that includes in the classroom, on the field, walkthroughs, et cetera, that starts almost immediately after you put the last game to bed. So if you're dwelling on what happened in New Orleans, whether it was good or bad, you're doing yourself basically a disservice for your next opponent, because that studying and that practicing and that game planning starts immediately.
Well, Raiders quarterback Derek Carr has popped up on these last few injury reports, Vinny, with a back injury coming into Week 9. I know a lot of guys are banged up, but can you give us the latest with Carr and if there's any concern coming from him and the team?
Well, I would classify it as a little worse than people are kind of leading on right now. I know it's bothering him. He felt like this week it felt better than it did last week at this time. So that's good news. The problem is it got aggravated during the Saints game. I knew that he was dealing with something, and I knew from just doing a little bit of poking around that it might be a little bit more I wouldn't say serious, but a little bit more involved than people might have been leading on. Well, if you watch the tape of the Saints game, there were definitely times, and that's why I re-asked the question. He just didn't look right at a certain point. The way he was throwing the ball, the way the ball was kind of sailing on him, his mechanics. And I just basically asked him, hey, are you hurting? What's the deal going on here? And, he's not going to ever use it as an excuse. That's just kind of how he's wired. I think it's something to keep an eye on. Let's put it that way. And he hopes that the worst is behind him. But with backs, it can be a little bit tricky. And sometimes, he got beat up in that game on Sunday. If that continues, then he's putting himself in harm's way where it can re-aggravate at any given time.
Well, the Raiders' upcoming opponent, Vinny, is also coming off of a loss, an overseas loss at that. The Jaguars touting a 2-6 record after falling to the Broncos in London. Still, what kind of challenges could Jacksonville pose to the Raiders, or could this be a game where the Raiders once again allow them to beat themselves?
Well, that's definitely part of it. I'd also urge Raider Nation to understand that Jacksonville Jaguars have a pretty good defense. They're giving up 19 points a game. That's 10th best in the NFL. If they only had an offense right now, they'd be in much better shape. Unfortunately, the offense is scoring just over 20 points a game, which is about 20th in the NFL. Trevor Lawrence, frankly, is having an awful second season. He started out pretty hot, but it's been a regression since then, and especially in this 5-game losing streak that they're on right now. He's completing under 60% of his passes. I think it's roughly 57, 58% of his passes. He's got 5 interceptions compared to 4 touchdowns. They brought in Doug Peterson to kind of fix him. This is a guy who was more heralded than Joe Burrow, more heralded than Justin Herbert. He was supposed to be a once-in-a-generation type of a quarterback. It hasn't translated yet to the NFL, And at this point of his second season, he's kind of taken some step backwards. So sometimes those wounded guys like that have their egos a little bit bruised and it hasn't been going well, that's who you got to worry about most sometimes in the NFL. So if I'm the Raiders, I'm bracing for a Trevor Lawrence who's got some pride and is probably going to play, or come out with that pride showing, and then against a defense that is pretty difficult to score against. So whether it looks good on paper or not, the Raiders are in for a fight on Sunday, and as opposed to last Sunday against the Saints, they better fight back or else a similar result can happen.
Flip the Field, brought to you by South Point Sports. Download the app at southpointsports.com. It's Heidi Fang here, and I'm joined with our Review Journal sports columnist, Ed Graney. We're going to break down the Jaguars side of this football game. Ed, we've got to start right off the top with the running back who's heating up. That's Travis Etienne. What have you made of his kind of story and development throughout the league here as he looks to be the featured back now, the Jacksonville Jaguars?
Yeah, Heidi's getting better and better. He's got 571 yards this year. More importantly, maybe 157 receiving yards, right? He's a lot like the Alvin Kamara, the back that the Raiders couldn't stop last week. He had 158 total yards. Etienne gashed the Broncos last week in Wembley for 156. He's coming on into his own, and he's becoming the player I think they thought they got out of LSU. The Raiders really need to keep an eye on this guy. Like we said, we saw what Kamara did last week, and if they give Etienne that kind of time and space that they gave Kamara, they could be in real trouble. Etienne's playing his best ball of his career right now, and I think the Raiders really need to focus on him this week as they go into the game.
And here we have a tale of two coaches, Josh McDaniels and Doug Peterson, both two wins right now and struggling in their divisions. What have you made about Doug Peterson, the way he's come in and worked with this football team so far?
I think he's done a really, really good job. Look, they're 2-6. I get they haven't won the games, have as many wins as he'd probably like. But you and I both know what Urban Meyer did to that franchise last year and how dysfunctional it was, how bad things were there. They needed someone like Doug Peterson to come in, a Super Bowl winning coach, someone to calm everything down, to bring professionalism to the locker room, to make it, a place that guys wanted to play and that would work hard and play hard for him. I think he was the perfect choice for the Jacksonville Jaguars. I think they're going to continue to get better and better with him, especially with what happened with Urban last year. This guy was the optimum choice to come in, settle everything down, and make this back into a professional organization. So while they're only 2-6, I think if you look everything together, he's done a really good job, and they'll continue to get better under him.
Cassie Soto back with you with this week's injury report. The Raiders have 3 players listed as questionable for Sunday's game versus Jacksonville, starting with tight end Darren Waller. Waller has been inconsistent this season as he battles a hamstring injury that sidelined him last week versus the Saints. Also listed as questionable is linebacker Divine Diablo as he deals with a back and wrist injury, and defensive tackle Neil Farrell Jr. with a knee injury. For more Raiders updates, check out VegasNation.com. Considered to be the greatest punter in NFL history, Raiders legend Ray Guy passed away on Thursday at the age of 72. Guy spent his entire 14-year career with the Silver and Black and remains as the only punter to ever be inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Guy was also the first punter ever selected in the first round of the NFL Draft when the then Oakland Raiders took him 23rd overall in 1973. Current Raiders punter A.J. Cole spoke on the lasting legacy of Ray Guy.
I've said kind of since I got here that I have a lot of pride in playing this position for especially this organization, just because of the history they have. The Raiders have the greatest history of the punter position of any franchise, and that started with Ray Guy. And the level that he got to, where his name is pretty much synonymous with NFL punting. It's not something you see a lot. It's definitely a sad day. It's sad to lose a legend like that. I mean, he pretty much invented modern punting. And so, just a special human being, his contributions on and off the football field, speak for themselves. It's sad to lose a legend.
DNR House of Diamonds is Las Vegas's elite private office jeweler, the perfect bridge between internet pricing and a traditional brick-and-mortar jewelry store. We specialize in loose diamonds, natural and lab-grown, engagement rings, fashion jewelry, custom design, and jewelry repairs. We operate by appointment in our beautiful offices in the One Summerlin building, downtown Summerlin. Our great relationships with the world's largest diamond wholesalers and our low overhead saves you hundreds, if not thousands, on your purchase.
With Capriotti's, game day is always extraordinary. Fuel your passion with our award-winning cheesesteaks, in-house oven-roasted turkey, and classic subs. Or create a fan frenzy with our catering trays that are perfect for any crew. At Capriotti's, we deliver extraordinary to you.
Listen to the Vegas Nation podcast 3 times a week, featuring Vinny Bonsignor and Sam Gordon to kick off the week with First and 10. In the middle of the week, catch Heidi Fang's takeaways, and rounding out the week on Fridays is Ed Graney and Adam Hill with Unsportsmanlike Conduct. Subscribe to the podcast and check them out as well on VegasNation.com and the Vegas Nation app, all powered by the Las Vegas Review Journal. Vegas Nation, fast takes, smart coverage.
The Raiders boast a former Pro Bowl quarterback and 3 Pro Bowl caliber wide receivers, but their passing offense hasn't taken off the way they probably wanted to. Through 8 weeks, the Raiders sport the 17th ranked passing offense, averaging 225.3 passing yards per game this season compared to 269.4 last year when they ranked 6th. Quarterback Derek Carr is completing 62.9% of his throws and averaging 6.8 yards per attempt, his lowest mark since 2017, and consequentially, Devontae Adams is averaging 73.1 receiving yards per game, his fewest since 2017. For perspective, he averaged 97.1 receiving yards per game last season with the Green Bay Packers, catching 7.7 passes per game compared to 5.4 this season. Hunter Renfrow has battled injury, but is averaging 3.6 receptions and 33.2 yards per game compared to 6.1 for 61.1 last season. Darren Waller has also battled injury, but is averaging 35 receiving yards per game compared to 69.9 over the last 3. Fortunately for the Raiders, they face a 22nd ranked passing defense when they visit the Jacksonville Jaguars this weekend. I'm Sam Gordon, and that's the story by the numbers.
Let's get a look at the lines with sports betting columnist for the Las Vegas Review Journal, Todd Dewey.
Thanks, Cassie. Well, the Raiders might have hit rock bottom in last week's 24-0 loss at New Orleans, but bettors haven't given up on them yet. In fact, sharp bettors at Circa Sports are banking on the Raiders to bounce back this week at Jacksonville with their consensus 2-point road favorites after the line opened at 1. Bettors at BetMGM are all over the Raiders by a 5-1 margin, and 65% of the tickets are on the Raiders at station casinos. Both books will be big Jaguar fans. The total is 48 after opening at 46. And the Westgate Superbook reported sharp money on the over. Raiders won the NFL's top over teams with a 4-2-1 over-under record. Something has to give in this one, as the Jaguars have lost and failed to cover 5 straight and are tied with Tampa Bay, the NFL's worst spread record at 2-6. And on the other hand, Derek Carr is on a 1-10-1 against a spread slide as a road favorite. One trend that might be a Raiders bettor's friend is that teams off a shutout loss have gone 27-10 against the spread in the next game. One good thing is that one of these teams is guaranteed to win and cover the spread this week after a rough season for both of them.
That'll do it for this week's episode of Vegas Nation Game Day. We hoped we helped get you ready for the Raiders' Week 9 matchup versus the Jacksonville Jaguars. Sunday's kickoff is set for 10 a.m. For more Raiders news, you can always head on over to VegasNation.com. For our entire crew here, I'm Cassie Soto. We hope you have a great weekend.
Powered by the Las Vegas Review Journal, this is Vegas Nation Game Day. Presented by DNR House of Diamonds, making luxury affordable. Located in the One Summerlin building in downtown Summerlin.